The source of Bayen's identification with Afro-Americans is not entirely clear, but his convictions may have been partially shaped by his close relationship with Dr. Azaj Workne Martin, a leading Ethiopian physician and staunch advocate of Pan-Africanism. As early as 1927, Dr. Martin had advised Bayen that, quote, "The greatest service you could render your country would be to influence thousands of black people in the USA and the West Indies and let them come and help us develop Ethiopia," end quote. It is, of course, possible that Bayen was also inspired by the nationalistic Garvey movement, which was reaching its peak when he arrived in the United States during the early 1920s. Finally, like other Africans studying in the United States during these years, Bayen was probably becoming well acquainted with Afro-American institutions, leaders, and thought. Whatever its origins, Bayen's Pan-Africanism was more than just an attitude of mind. He fully realized the practical benefits that could result from international black brotherhood. Thus, between 1930 and 1935, Bayen followed Dr. Martin's advice and arranged for several highly skilled Afro-Americans to be invited to Ethiopia by the imperial government as advisors. In 1930, Bayen took Hubert F. Julian, the Harlem aviator, to Ethiopia. A year later, he arranged to have Dr. John West, a physician from Washington, D.C., sent to his country to serve there as a public health official. In 1932, Bayen was instrumental in obtaining a position in the Ethiopian school system for Cyril Price. And in 1934, he played a prominent role in assisting John C. Robinson of Chicago to be appointed as an instructor in aviation. Although some of the Afro-Americans who found their way to Ethiopia during this period proved to be considerably less effective and suitable than others, neither Bayen nor the Emperor Haile Selassie seemed to have become disenchanted with Afro-Americans as a people. Bayen especially continued, despite some disappointments, to court black Americans with enthusiasm. For instance, sometime in the spring of 1935, he appealed to officials at Tuskegee Institute in Alabama to send several of its outstanding graduates to Ethiopia to assist in the agricultural development of the empire. Tuskegee, which had a long history of such involvement in African development, had apparently agreed to undertake the Ethiopian project, but the outbreak of war with Italy that fall prevented fulfillment of the plan. After the Italian invasion of Ethiopia, Bayen focused less upon recruiting skilled Afro-Americans for service in Ethiopia and more on mobilizing black American support for his country, concentrating on black institutions.
For me, Jehovah guide me, be my guidance, no they could never stop me. I'm on the rock, higher than I, Jehovah guide me, I'm on the rock, go tell my enemy, I'm on the rock.
During these years, Bayen lived close to the future king, serving as both his page and personal attendant. In 1921, when Tafari was selecting young Ethiopian men and women to be educated abroad, Bayen was among the first to be chosen. Quote, I was told of my responsibility by His Imperial Majesty himself that I was to study medicine and return to Ethiopia as a physician for the purpose of helping to organize the public health system. End quote. Bayen was subsequently sent to Bombay, India, with 3 colleagues, 2 young men and a woman, for preparatory studies under private tutors from Great Britain. Cast in the typical imperialistic mold of Victorian England, these instructors used to tell us, Bayen later called, quote, of the greatness of the British Empire, end quote. Finally, when his teachers haughtily informed him and his comrades that it was British destiny one day to control Ethiopia, Bayen decided that he had enough of an English education. After discussing the matter, he and his friends concluded that, quote, America was the only country that would never try to rob us of our country. Therefore, it would be best to go there, end quote. The tiny group thereupon prevailed upon their benefactor, Ras Tafari, to permit them to pursue their studies in the United States, where imperialistic designs on Africa seemed absent. Much to their probable relief and delight, the students' request was granted. Thus, within the short span of 1 year, they were preparing to travel to yet another far-off land of whose existence most of their countrymen were only dimly aware. Shortly thereafter, in the company of an American missionary to Ethiopia, Bayen set sail with 2 of his colleagues for the United States. The young woman had died in India. The 3 students arrived in America in April 1922, carrying with them a personal letter of introduction to President Warren G. Harding from Ras Teferi, by now heir apparent to the Ethiopian throne. Because of their impressive credentials from the Ethiopian region, the trio was permitted to meet Mr. Harding, who urged the Africans to enroll at his alma mater, Marietta College.